Dr. Light, what is the problem?
A strange meteor struck the Earth just a while ago. This meteor seems to be emitting a powerful energy signature. Something this powerful must not fall into the hands of evil.
I understand, Dr. Light. I'm on it.
Thank you, Mega Man. If you can, please bring the meteor back.
Maybe! Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Mega Man Xtreme, brought to us by Capcom. Mega Man Xtreme is a spin-off of the Mega Man X series. Being available now on the portable console, the Mega Man Xtreme series combines levels from the Mega Man X series, with a new plot and storyline to tie it together. You play as X, who goes inside a computer world and has to travel through levels from Mega Man X1 and X2, fighting the Mavericks from those particular levels, eventually getting to the final set of levels, which are a mix of X1 and X2 as well. So here we go with Mega Man Xtreme for the Nintendo Game Boy Color. When you first start up the game, you're presented with a pretty lengthy intro before you get to the main title screen. Once we make it to the title screen itself, we can start a new game, continue from a previous save, or tweak a little few things in the options. When we start a brand new game, you'll be on the normal difficulty. The game features 3 difficulty modes, normal, hard, and extreme, with normal and hard containing story elements, and the extreme mode not containing any story, and we won't be completing that in this run. However, normal mode contains 4 Maverick levels, and then your final set of levels. However, hard mode contains 4 different Mavericks. Though it contains the same final levels of the game, it also contains a different side villain that we'll be battling. So you have 2 different side villains, one in normal and one in hard, as well as 4 different Mavericks in each difficulty mode. And then the extreme mode contains all 8 of those Mavericks, but no story mode to it. So that's why I'm going to do 1 playthrough of normal and 1 playthrough of hard, showing everything and all the Mavericks. The story is slightly different in each of the 2 modes, so it's definitely worth checking out. Just very interesting that they decided to do it this way, instead of just containing 1 default mode to contain all the Mavericks right from the start. The first level of the game, which you'll have to complete no matter what mode you play, is, well, a remake of the first level from Mega Man X, complete with the giant copter-like guys that you'll blast through that also drop little robots, and after a certain amount of hits they will explode. Due to the graphical and technical limitations of the game, it does some interesting effects throughout, where it'll just destroy and then all of a sudden we'll be standing in the middle of an open abyss instead of getting to see the cool effects, of course, of the platform breaking and going downwards as the machine was destroyed. Overall, though, Mega Man Xtreme does a good job with its technical limitations, containing all the stuff from the Mega Man X1 and X2 levels that are included, and on a more condensed level. At the end of the first level, though, you will end up battling Vile, or Vava, as he's called in this, and this is not like X1 where you can lose the fight. No, you actually do have to beat him. He's not very difficult at all, as he moves pretty slowly, sometimes speeding through charging, but you can easily jump over him, deliver full charged up X-Buster shots to him, and he'll go down in just a matter of seconds. Once he's completed, we've completed the opening stage, and we have some storyline before being able to select our first Maverick level. After that lengthy intro, we now get to select from our first of the Maverick levels, and you have 4 levels to choose from, 3 from X1 and 1 from X2. You have Flame Stag from X2, and then from X1 we have Spark Mandrill, Storm Eagle, and Chill Penguin, and we're going to be starting with Storm Eagle. If you're familiar with the original Mega Man X1 and 2, you'll know a pretty good amount of already what to expect from the levels, including the layouts and the locations of the special items, which I will be collecting all special items, including the extra energy containers, the health ups, as well as, of course, the X-Buster parts. Jump off to the far left here on these rotating platforms in order to get the first extra energy container. When you have full health and you get a little bit of extra health, instead of it just going to waste, it will actually start filling up those, and you can actually use them at any time to replenish health. After going through the first save point, and there's a lot of save points throughout the game, I don't know if this was a way for the game to kind of just load the next part of the level due to how intense the levels are, but it's very interesting to see. Jump up here into this area, run through, and you'll get the first health up of the game. Just a little bit farther to the right, after a couple of moving up and down platforms with some turrets, drop down into here. You're going to see some of these flame containers over to the right. Keep firing at them until they're destroyed and work your way through, and you'll get the first of the X armor upgrades, which will be getting the helmet here. After the scene with Dr. Light, make sure you actually get into the container. You can actually just run away after the cutscene, and if you don't go into the container itself, you won't actually get the upgrade. After grabbing that though, head back out and jump up here, watching out for the robots if you can. They don't do a ton of damage. I don't know if this is why the other difficulties were added, so they could do more damage, but a lot of times you'll find me just being able to charge right through a large portion of enemies. After a few moving up and down platforms, you'll be on the top of a giant ship. Go down the ladder here, or drop down the side and to the left, and enter into the first boss chamber. Instead of the door unlocking and us going through, it instantly teleports us to the boss battle with Storm Eagle. Storm Eagle works very much like his SNES counterpart. Do full charged up shots as he's trying to blow you away to the other sides, and of course if you're not careful, you'll get knocked off the sides. He'll also fly up into the air and drop eggs, which will contain 4 little birds that will fly off. Either jump over them or blast them with your buster. He'll then do a whole bunch of dives. Whichever way he comes down, you want to go the opposite, and if you can do a quick turn and deliver a shot or two as he's actually diving down. If you're not able to get shots though, don't worry, after a little bit, he will come back down and try to knock you off the edge again, sometimes using a large tornado ability that will really push you. If you're stuck in the tornado, immediately try to jump up into the air to get away from it. After delivering enough shots though with the X-Buster, Storm Eagle will go down and we've completed the first of the 4 Mavericks in normal mode. After being introduced to Zane, the side villain for the normal difficulty, we're able to select our next level, which we're going to be going to Flame Stag from Mega Man X2. When the level begins, jump onto the small ledges, watch out for the big ship that will then crash into the wall. Get into this little cove right here and then jump out and upwards to get on top. Drop down here and you'll find the first save point. Slowly work your way down, taking out these robots along the way, and when you make it over here, quickly start working your way up. You have to move quickly because fire is rising from the bottom. If you're hit, you will end up losing a life. If you're quick enough though, you can get into this area and grab the next health up before the fire reaches you. Make sure you do a save here, and then you're going to want to do some charge forwards, watching out for the lava down below. Head all the way up, ignoring the ship, and it'll bust through usually one of the walls here. Either way, jump over across these platforms and find the next of the armor upgrades. This one is actually, well, the body upgrade. The body upgrade will of course increase our defense, so we're already not taking a whole lot of damage, we'll be taking a lot less now. Now afterwards, instead of going down, head upwards. Go to the left platform and up into this chamber to fight Zane for the first time. These are one of the 2 extra enemies that were created just for Mega Man Xtreme, and overall they both are pretty easy fights. Zane will jump back and forth, trying to swipe you with his sword, which you can easily charge past and deliver a full shot. After 3 jumps though, he will end up doing a spin, so you'll want to get to the opposite side of him, away from the spin if at all possible, either climbing on a wall or jumping over him. After he does this though, he'll go right back into his 3 jump pattern. After you deliver enough hits though, he'll be defeated and he'll blast off, and we'll have to deal with him a little bit later on. Outside of his chamber, we're now going to continue on in Flame Stag's level. Working our way up here, you're going to have these little guys that will fly back and forth firing fire at you. Now, in the SNES version, they have different amounts of oil or smoke coming out of these pipes on the walls that will ignite, causing a lot of damage from the fire that these guys will, of course, set on fire. But in this version, because of limitations, they don't really do anything. Just a little bit past them, though, is the boss chamber. Get out Storm Eagle's move that we just got from the previous level, and we're going to be using that against Flame Stag, who is easily one of my favorites from X2. He fires out a couple of different fireballs, one straight, and usually one in an uppercut-like form that will go a little bit up, hit the wall, and go upwards. So if you're bouncing off of the wall, it will end up chasing you. He'll also bounce up and down on the walls. When he's doing that, just wait for him to come back down. You can usually tell where he's about to land, either on the left or right side, and deliver another one of the tornadoes. When he slides across dashing towards you, jump on the wall, either over him, or be prepared to immediately launch another tornado if he ends up bouncing off the wall instead. The fireballs get a little bit trickier and more powerful as the fight goes on, but once you have fully delivered enough of those Eagle tornadoes, he is done, and we move on to the next Maverick. For the first time in the game, though, we aren't greeted with another cutscene. We can actually move on to the next level, and we're going to be going to Chill Penguin. Chill Penguin, which was the first level a lot of people I think used to do back in X1, is pretty well represented with the lumberjack-like robots at the beginning that will launch out the circle disc at you. There's some bats in the next area. Go through the first of these save points. You'll then have the spike wheel enemies that you can blast. They don't have their extra animations though here, being able to go on their side, so just jump over them or blast them with a full charged up shot, work your way up the wall here, and there's no way to avoid the next of the Dr. Light capsules. With the next light capsule upgrade, the late capsule, watch out for the giant ostriches. If you give them enough time, though, they will fire their head actually at you. And after a couple of them, though, you'll get another save point and be able to jump into the giant mech. This mech can destroy different things, but we're not going to use it for very long. We're going to actually propel ourselves out of it and up to here. Get out Flame Stag's weapon and then blast through this container, which will expose one of the HP ups. The second one contains a large chunk of health, so you can grab that before jumping over to the right and to the final save point of the level. Here you're going to have the snowball making robots. There's 3 of them on a couple of ledges. Just make sure you don't fall into the pits, and you'll make it to the chamber of Chill Penguin himself. Of course, we're going to be using Flame Stag's ability in order to light him on fire. Chill Penguin has a few different moves. He'll either fire straight snowballs at you that you'll have to jump in between or jump over. He'll also create clones of himself, in which case when he's doing so you won't really be able to do much. When the clones are made with his icy breath, he'll either jump up and pull the handle to launch them towards you, or he'll just jump straight up and try to get to you, in which case you'll have to try to get away from him and avoid him. If he jumps up and clings onto that thing, either blast him with a full charge of X-Buster, or hit him with Flame Stag's ability. After you have burned this penguin enough, he will go down and we'll move on to the 4th Maverick of the game. Next up, the 4th of the normal difficulty Mavericks is Spark Mandrill. As we begin the level, he starts off with a few of the really large robots that fire out electrical shocks at you. They take a ton of hits and usually in order to get rid of, so yeah, I just end up usually running into them and just trying to get past them. Down to the bottom, following these ladders, you want to bust through them. As long as you have the upgrades with the legs and all, you'll be able to bounce off the bricks and destroy them, getting another one of those energy containers. After the save point, the screen will get dark, except when these light bird things are flying across the screen. When they are, you want to try to avoid them if you can, and be able to see where your pits and all are going to be. Go through the bottom of the doors here and into the chamber. Here you're going to have to battle this robot inside of a bubble. As he's bouncing around, he will drop bubbles onto the ground that will also cause little puddles. I usually end up using Storm Eagle's move on him because it can usually actually hit multiple times if you time the tornado correctly. There isn't really too much to this battle since he bounces around pretty slowly and you can avoid those projectiles. The hardest ones, of course, are when he's up in the air and fires them. They'll go a larger distance, but once he's taken care of, go through the other exit and immediately into another save point. After the save point, watch out for the drill robots here and start working your way down. Jump up on the wall on the side after a whole bunch of those turrets, and you'll be at another save point with a giant turtle robot. Right past the robot, you're going to jump on the right wall and then do a huge leap over to the left wall, and then use that to propel yourself into the upper right corner to grab another one of the health ups. This is one of the harder ones to actually get during the normal difficulty. After a few more turtle robots, you'll then be in another dark hallway. Be careful and look upwards as you'll see breakable bricks like we destroyed earlier. You'll have to do a whole bunch of jumping on the wall here using your helmet, and it's very tricky and the game is very finicky about getting up here, but trust me, you can as long as you have the helmet upgrade. Eventually you'll be able to break through these walls and get to the 4th of the X armor pieces, this time finally getting the arm upgrade. The arm upgrade not only allows us to charge up even more with our X-Buster, but we can also now charge up the moves we get from the Mavericks. After a large pit, and another one of those flying birds will then be in the chamber of Spark Mandrill. You're going to want to bust out Chill Penguin's move and prepare for your battle with the large monkey himself. Immediately start off by firing the ice at him, and it gets a nice effect of actually freezing him. After freezing him, though, he will flash for a good few seconds afterwards, not allowing you to hit him again until the flashing pretty much stops. He'll do a couple of different moves, punching the ground to cause lightning to go across the ground and into the ceiling, so you want to try to jump and avoid that, as well as he'll usually charge forward a lot with his large fist. Jump over him, of course, when he's charging towards you to try to avoid getting hit by it. It's a little bit harder to time your ice hits in this fight as compared to its SNES counterpart, but the ice works extremely well like it does there, where you'll be able to freeze him. Even if your ice ends up missing him and hits the wall behind him, it'll end up bouncing and destroying and going to a spread shot that you usually will end up clipping him as well. After enough hits to him though, we're going to get another cutscene and move on to the Sigma levels of the game. Sigma level number 1 is based off the first Sigma level from X1. Starts off with the giant turtles that you'll have to jump over or blast enough times to get through, and then you'll have the moving platforms. Climb up the moving platforms, timing it correctly, and then do a big jump or wait for the platform to go over if you want to be more careful about it, and you'll find the first of the save points. After a giant one of the mechs that we battled in Spark Mandrill's level, firing some missiles at us, we're going to climb up a couple of ladders, and at the top we're going to reach the first of the boss doors. Now, there are a couple of these rooms in a row. You'll hit a save point in the one, and then go through another one right into, well, another one of these rooms. Now here is where we're going to battle Zane again. This is also where we're going to battle the secondary villain in hard mode. However, if you play extreme mode, you'll actually battle both villains in the consecutive rooms, so that's the reason why there's multiple of the rooms together. Just like our first battle with Zane, we're going to watch out for his jumps, as he'll do a couple of them in a row, and follow it up with the spin. He always likes to jump to the opposite side of the room, and the only real difference I notice in this form, I think, is when he spins, he actually moves towards you, which is extremely slow and very easy to jump over. With the full charged up buster that we now have the ability to do when we're able to get those hits in, Zane's health will go down pretty quickly. After defeating Zane in a brief cutscene afterwards, we're going to go through a door into the next room, which is where we would battle the secondary villain for hard mode, and then into finally another save point. Next hallway has a bunch of devices that if you go and activate, they will fire a laser out at you, and then you'll have a series of pretty tough jumps and platforms with a lot of enemies here. You may want to take the route I do by just running up and jumping through a lot of them, trying to get through quickly. You may want to time it, wait for them to throw out the mace balls, and then deliver a couple of full charged up shots to get rid of them before attempting to jump to their platforms. After all of that, you'll then go into a long hallway with a whole bunch of enemies, including a bunch of Mets, and you'll come to the boss chamber for Sigma level 1. Now this is the giant spider from X1, and you're going to use Chill Penguin's move in order to do a large amount of damage. The way this fight works is the spider will lay out a bunch of different paths for him to go through. It'll then work its way down, going back and forth, and every time it comes in contact with one of the pathways, it will then take that across. Trying to judge exactly where it's going to go before it ends up coming down is the tricky part, as of course you don't want it to land directly on you. Every so often, instead of even coming down though, he will throw out little mini spiders. The little mini spiders can be destroyed, but usually I end up just trying to jump over and avoid them instead of firing shots, as usually my eyes are much more concerned on the pathways that are then being created and the giant spider about to come down on me. This fight is a pretty tricky one, and also being a pretty lengthy one since you can only deliver so much damage to him each time he ends up coming down. You're gonna have to figure out a lot of the paths, and sometimes the speed in which the giant spider ends up coming down is faster. Usually after delivering a couple of the spiders, I think he ends up speeding up, and as the fight goes on and he gets less health, he seems to speed up a little bit. After he's finally taken care of, we move on to Sigma Level 2. This level is based on a level from Mega Man X2, and we'll start off with a couple of the armored shield guys that will throw out their mace balls, as well as a few bats. After going through the first save point, watch out for the pits and climb up this ladder, and you're going to come to this movable platform. Every time you jump on it, it changes directions. You're going to have to get used to this because we're going to need it in order to help us out in just a little bit on the next one that we run into. Here is probably the trickiest thing in the entire game. As you can already see, the hit detection on this thing is extremely annoying. But what we have to do is work our way up with this thing and get it to the very top of the screen. To do so takes a lot of manipulating and a lot of practice to get used to it. It's not necessary if you just want to beat the game, you don't have to do anything with this, but if you want to get the most powerful item in the game, you're going to have to deal with it, and that's why this thing ends up being so freaking annoying. You can see I made the mistake. I actually had it all set up nice and easily, but then I ended up screwing up and not getting through. But backtrack a little bit and then blast on through to the right side so I can climb up and grab this ladder and another save point right afterwards. Now here is some very tricky jumps, as you're going to have to get over a whole series of spikes. Now there are other ways to do the jump I just did. That's just the way I end up doing it in order to get through it, but it's very tricky because of course if you hit the spikes you end up dying. Drop down the wall and go inside this part of the wall and you'll find another one of the Dr. Light chambers. This one will give you the Shuriken and the Hadoken from Street Fighter. Yep, both of the extra super secret Street Fighter moves that were in X1 and X2 are available to you in this game, all from one chamber. In order to access this chamber though, of course you had to get all the other items from the previous Maverick levels. Now you'll do these moves very similarly to the way you did them not only in X, but also in Street Fighter if you're new to the series. The Hadoken is the fireball-like projectile, and when you do it, can do a lot of damage to enemies. Now, it's not quite as powerful as the one from the original X, as I find that a lot of enemies, while normal enemies are destroyed, bosses don't take quite as much damage. As far as the uppercut Shoryuken goes, I don't really use it a whole lot, but I will demonstrate it at least one time. On the next set, you're going to have a whole bunch of spikes along with little flying guys. Take them out and jump from each platform to each platform and eventually making it to the next boss chamber. Now for this boss, we're actually going to use the Hadoken in order to help us out. It's a large machine with 4 cannons to start off with. Charge up your full X Buster so that it's flashing pink or red, and then use the motion of the Hadoken in order to fire one of those at the pieces of the cannon to instantly destroy it. Each time you hit and destroy one of the cannon pieces, it will inch closer to you. Time it up so you can take out all 4, and once you've done so, the center will be exposed and you'll have to battle the actual boss within. For this boss, either use your full charged up shots or use your Hadoken in order to hit him. Of course, it's going to be a lot harder to hit him with the Hadokens during this, so I recommend for the most part using just the fully charged up shots. Of course, bouncing back and forth between the different platforms and being very careful to avoid the spikes down below. Also, while it looks like there's a little edge to the machine itself, that little yellow piece sticking out in the lower left, that is not a viable platform, so you can't land on it, so don't accidentally attempt to in order to avoid a blast or two, as you'll just end up colliding with the spikes and lose a life. After the boss has finally been defeated, we're going to move on to the third of the Sigma levels. The next level of the game has a whole bunch of spikes lining both the left and right walls. You have to wait for the platforms to move on down so you can climb on top of them and then rise with them. As the platforms go up, you're going to have to blast different cannons off the other platforms that are also going to spew out flames. Usually I end up getting hit by one or two of the flames as I reach up, but once I make it to the top and get to the save point, we're now going to be in a new area with 4 chambers. These are the rematches against the Mavericks we have fought. Our strategies are going to remain the same as we did the first time around, using Flame Stag's ability. You can also mix it up with some of the new charged up versions of these that we have, using a full charged up shot with Flame Stag's ability in order to do a flaming fireball all the way across the screen in order to do a lot of damage to Chill Penguin. After each of the fights, you'll notice there is large chunks of health. You can gather these at any point in order to replenish after each battle. They respawn each time. In the upper left corner, we're going to do our rematch with Storm Eagle. Now, instead of using the weakness or anything on him, we're just going to keep blasting him with the Mega X Buster that we have in order to hit him. With those fully charged up versions of this, it doesn't take too much in order to get rid of him. You can still fall off, though, the left or right side, depending upon where he's trying to throw you, so you still have to be very careful of that, and watching out as he does his dive bomb attacks. After a lengthy rematch with Storm Eagle, back to the chamber, and we're going to go now to the far right side and go to the upper right of the chambers and do our rematch with Flame Stag. Here, I show off the Shoryuken for the first time by doing that uppercut, which does a decent amount. You can also do the full charged up shots with the X Buster if you want to in order to hit Flame Stag instead of using his weakness. Either way does a lot of damage to him. This is just one of the alternate paths, and I want to show the Hadoken off as well and show how much damage that can possibly do on one of these bosses. After playing around enough though, I break out Storm Eagle's move in order to finish him off with some tornadoes. The final of the 4 rematches is against Spark Mandrill, and we're going to use the Chill Penguin move like last time in order to freeze him in his place, trying to prevent him from doing as many of his electrical charges and charging punches as possible. It takes a little bit of practice, but if you can do a full charged up version of Chill Penguin's move that will bounce back and forth off the left and right walls, you can actually do multiple hits of damage to Spark Mandrill this way, racking up lots of damage. Like I said though, the only problem with this is it takes a little bit of timing. After the 4 Mavericks are defeated, refill your health and then go through the newly created chamber in the top center. Once here, run through watching out for the enemies along the way and get out the lightning move from Spark Mandrill, as this is what we're going to be using on the upcoming boss battle against Sigma. When the fight begins, immediately fire at him and he'll block the shot. Now he'll either charge directly at you or he'll fire a bunch of projectiles at you. Dodge these and then he'll usually start bouncing off the walls. Wait till he gets all the way near the top, right before he's about to come at you, then drop down, hitting him when you're dropping down, and then be prepared on the bottom floor to hit him one more time before immediately going back up the left wall to watch out for his attack. He'll charge forward a lot of times using his sword in order to swipe at you, but if you're far enough up the upper left wall, you'll be able to avoid this. Just keep dropping down and hitting him twice with the spark move each time he ends up doing this, and you'll have him in a nice little combo that he won't be able to break out of. After the cutscene, we'll be in a new area. Here, you'll move a little bit and end up running into Techno. After the relatively sad cutscene, we'll then get to the next boss chamber room on the far right for the final battle of the game. This battle is a rematch against Sigma from Mega Man X1, and they do a great job of trying to scale this battle down using the moving hand platforms, watching out for his giant blast, and then watching out for the lightning that spews out of the hands that are moving around, which you can also use for platforms. Either stand on these platforms or jump off the left wall, bouncing off just in time in order to blast a full charged up X-Buster shot in order to hit him. You can sometimes clip him with a Hadouken if you really want to, but for the most part, I'm just going to do the jump up with a full X-Buster shot. As far as his weakness goes, well, the biggest weakness for him, actually, we don't have yet, and we'll actually be getting in our hard playthrough of the game. He doesn't use quite every move in his arsenal during the normal difficulty fight, so it's not nearly as tough as its SNES counterpart. But once you deliver enough hits, though, you can sit back and enjoy the ending to Mega Man Xtreme. So there you have the normal difficulty for Mega Man Xtreme, complete with all the cutscenes and all of the obtainable items throughout. Mega Man Xtreme, of course, a dialed-down version of kind of levels from X1 and X2, but they do a good enough job. Well, not as stellar, I think, as some of its Mega Man counterparts for Game Boy, based on the NES series of games. Mega Man Xtreme is still a pretty well-made game, and definitely worth checking out as one of those oddball Mega Man titles. Of course, my playthrough of the game isn't over yet, as I will now be jumping into hard mode, and what's really cool is you can load up your save, and it's kind of a new game plus, but with a new whole set of levels. You'll be able to jump into the next set of Mavericks levels with all of the obtained items from the normal difficulty run. Now, you can also play hard mode with none of the upgrades, but I think it's a lot cooler, of course, to have the armor pieces in the upcoming run. Also, because of this, we'll be getting the 0 moves in this run. The Zero moves basically summon Zero whenever you would like him to for a certain amount of energy, and he'll do one of his different moves, and we'll unlock these by finding the chambers in the Maverick levels during the hard difficulty run. At the end of the credits, you'll be able to save. You're told about the hard difficulty mode, and it's time to jump into the hard difficulty. When we start up, instead of jumping into hard mode, we're going to go to continue and select our save data. Once we do so, we'll be jumping into the hard difficulty mode. Like I said, it's kind of a new game plus, as you'll have all of the X-Buster upgrades and items and abilities that we obtained during our normal playthrough, including the Maverick moves as well. Now you start off with the intro level that we already completed at the beginning of normal difficulty. We'll have to complete it again here for hard difficulty. It's the exact same as it was before, except with our new abilities, we can blast through enemies a little bit easier, and they don't do quite as much damage or anything since we have the armor already upgraded. Unfortunately, there really isn't any differences as far as the opening level, and especially the Sigma levels later on. The only real difference is going to be that in Sigma 1 we'll be fighting the other side villain instead of Zane, and in Sigma 3 we'll be fighting the Mavericks and the Chambers from this difficulty instead of the normal difficulty. Of course, in extreme difficulty, you'll be fighting all of the Mavericks contained in the game. You have 8 chambers in that room that you'll have to go through. Normally, I would have gone just right through extreme mode. Like I said, the only reason I decided not to is because there is no story elements, and the story is, of course, a big part of the game. Here we're going to do our rematch with Vile or Vava, and we're going to blast him with these fully charged up X-Buster shots. And since we have the upgraded Arm Buster, it'll only take a couple in order to take him down and move on. Now, the cutscene and story is different in the hard difficulty, so it's definitely worth replaying because the whole techno and MIDI part of the game that ended with normal difficulty is not included in this run. When we make it to the stage select screen, you'll see that we have 4 different Mavericks to beat. We have Wheel Gator, we have Magna Centipede, we have Morph Moth, as well as Armored Armadillo, who is the one we're going to be tangling with first. Armored Armadillo's level is a mine-themed level, and you'll start off by jumping on a movable cart that has spikes on the end as it will move down the track, taking out enemies along the way. Still one of my favorite things from the original X game. After watching out for some bats and dropping down here, jump up the wall immediately and get hit by the bats probably a few times, but drop down once the machine has moved out of the way in order to get behind it and grab the energy container. You can then either take out the machine by blasting it a bunch, or do what I do, run into its back and then run through it. If you get hit by the front, it's instant death, but every other part of the body only does a little minuscule amount of damage. As you're continuing on and get onto another one of the movable carts, it'll blast through, and once again, once it stops here, watch out for more bats, usually hitting me a ton, and I'll make it to another save point. When you drop down here, there's another one of the machines. What you're going to want to do is hit it and run past it. Once you've done so, then climb up the wall before it breaks it, and grab the health up. Now you can once again destroy it and stop it before it makes it to that part of the wall so you can still climb up, though I find it easier just to run into it, take a little bit of damage, and then run through it with your invincibility frames in order to get in front and climb up and grab the HP up. For the end of the level, you have one more of the minecarts that destroys enemies and then flies out into the open. When it does this, you're going to want to jump up and cling on to the upper wall, and then run through and find the first of the 0 chambers. Of course, the 0 container up there is actually the Hadoken chamber in the original X, which we got for redoing Armored Armadillo's level multiple times after obtaining 100% of the items. Now for the battle with Armored Armadillo, we're going to be using Spark Mandrill's weapon that we got in the previous run. Blast him immediately multiple times as he'll try to block a few shots, and if you're able to hit him, he will blast off his armor. Once you have his armor off, you can blast him multiple times with Spark Mandrill's weapon. Now you can actually hit him with the spin while he's bouncing off the walls, which I actually forgot to do a lot of times during the course of this fight. He bounces all around, stopping and sometimes firing out a few simple projectiles your way, but you're able to easily keep hitting him with Spark Mandrill's weapon. Of course, if he's in the armor, you can't hit him when he's rolling and bouncing all along, so doing a New Game Plus with Spark Mandrill makes this battle a lot easier. If you're playing hard mode straight up, you just have to use the X-Buster to help you out, and the battle is definitely more difficult because he'll block more of your shots, but it's still very easily manageable and the best of the Mavericks to start off with. After the next cutscene, we're going to go into Wheel Gator's level for the second of the hard mode Mavericks. As soon as the level begins, dash forward into the area inside, watching out for these guys as they end up opening up, spewing out little robots consistently. Destroy this one down here as it'll just be easier, and what you have to do is jump off the right wall and cling on to this little piece of the left wall in this little pathway so you can get upwards and grab the next of the 0 upgrades. It's a pretty difficult jump in order to get up there, but with a little bit of practice you shouldn't have too much trouble. And after getting the next 0 upgrade, drop down. Be careful though of spikes all along this area, as you'll have to use these movable platforms similar to the ones that we used in Sigma 2 during our normal run. After this save point, you'll be able to get into another one of the giant mechs and use this in order to blast through a lot of enemies. The game definitely has some flicker issues when there's 2 of the giant mechs on screen, but it does its best to really replicate the SNES counterpart here. At the end, you'll have to jump out of your vehicle and enter another save point. Climb up the ladder here. Now, this is where things get tricky. Use this guy's mace ability that he throws out the little mace ball, get hit by it, and then quickly bounce up the left wall in order to get the health upgrade. There's other ways to do this, but this is the quickest way to do this and prevents us from having to redo the level later on. Rise up on this platform, grab the extra life if you want to, and enter the chamber on the right side for the first of the 2 matches against the extra villain of the hard difficulty. Gmail or Gmail will be very weak to Flame Stag's move if you have it. He throws out a bunch of shurikens in your way, and after throwing out a whole bunch of them, he'll eventually start disappearing and reappearing around the room, eventually dropping and then repeating the process. It's a ridiculously easy pattern to understand and be able to jump over his shurikens. While they do have a pretty large hitbox around them, a nice timed jump will be able to get over them every time. Hitting him enough with Flame Stag, or if you have to use the X-Buster, he will go down and will be able to go out the exit on the other side of the room, of course having to deal with him again later on during Sigma's levels. After that part, jump through, watching out for some more of these containers that are shooting out the enemies, hit a save point before you end up going back inside of the ship and down to the boss chamber itself for our matchup against Wheel Gator. Now, we don't have Wheel Gator's weakness here, so we're just going to be using the X-Buster to help us out. Wheel Gator can be one of the toughest Mavericks to deal with. He ends up going underneath the sludge and popping back up where you are. You have to keep on moving to watch out so he doesn't end up grabbing you in his mouth and end up chomping down on you. He'll also fire wheels that will not only go across the ground, but then will run up to the ceiling, dropping off. And the way they drop off can be a little bit difficult to get out of the way of sometimes. When he's flashing white and firing projectiles, and he'll fire 3 of these out, he's invulnerable for a period of time, and you won't be able to actually deliver hits, which makes this fight pretty long and drawn out for one of the Maverick fights. Wait for those opportunities to launch in those fully charged up Mega Buster shots in order to do the most damage here. And usually about midway through the fight, he'll start doing his alternate move where he'll end up spinning around in a tornado-like move and fly across the screen. Once again, you won't be able to hurt him when he's doing this particular animation. You'll just have to wait for it to play out. The key is just to make sure you take advantage of your best opportunities, which is mostly when he pops out of the sludge trying to nom on you a little bit. After delivering enough hits, though, he will be defeated and will move on to the 3rd of the Maverick levels. Next up, though, we're going to be traveling to the junk yard and dealing with Morph Moth. At the beginning of Morph Moth's level, watch out for a couple of guys that throw out those little spinning discs, taking out the second one, or at least jumping to his platform and climbing upwards on the wall. There's an extra life up here, as well as a health upgrade. Inside here is the first save point. Do not hit the save point before grabbing the health upgrade, or you'll have to redo the level, because the game ends up teleporting you kind of with each save point, taking you to another area and not allowing you to backtrack. Then you're going to want to use Wheel Gator's move that we just got to open up the floor in this particular spot to get down here so you can get to the next of the 0 chambers. After getting the next 0 upgrade, head back up and climb back up the wall. Sometimes if you leave a little bit of the wall left without destroying it all, it can be difficult, but just keep mashing the jump button, you should be able to get up. Wheels Gator's move is actually pretty useful for a lot of the level itself, taking out the guys that are hanging from the ceiling. Bounce up, jumping back and forth between the platforms, and after another save point, you'll enter a mini-boss room. Here, this creature will fly down and inhabit the robot down below, and once it's up and moving around, it'll try to attack you. Do a fully charged up Wheel Gator move in order to hit it as soon as it starts moving, and you'll be able to destroy it instantly. If you somehow don't destroy it with the first one, charge up another one immediately and fire that one at the right time, and you'll be able to hopefully get rid of it that way. After that, head on down. This area is a little bit tricky because there's a lot of spike areas, a lot of enemies. Just kind of barrel your way through it in order to reach another save point. Here you can use your wheel to help you out, take out some of the hanging guys, or just avoid them altogether. Don't let the little monsters try to jump onto your head and end up clinging onto it, doing damage. At the bottom, we'll enter another one of the mini-boss rooms for another one of the giant robots, except this time he's not inhabited by one of the creatures. Just do another one of those fully charged up shots at the right spot in his body, and he'll instantly go down and you'll be able to continue on the level. Jump over a giant robot and enter the next door right away, and yep, you're in the boss chamber for Morph Moth. Once the battle begins, we're going to switch over to Flame Stag's move to help us out. Morph Moth has two forms. He'll start off as his little larva form, and after doing enough damage, he'll transform into the giant moth form. In this form, however, he'll move across the ground spinning, and you'll be able to hit him with the fire. And then when he's hanging up and hanging in the center of the room, he'll have a whole bunch of junk go around in a circle, which can be very, very tricky to dodge. So usually I like to just keep hitting him with Flame Stag's fire in order to keep doing damage. When he does morph into the actual moth form and starts moving around the room, he'll fly back and forth from the left and right walls, dropping pollen, which can be also difficult to dodge because of the way it lays and the way he keeps moving in the small chamber. Deliver enough of those flame shots though, and he will be destroyed, and we'll move on to the fourth of the Maverick levels. The fourth and final hard mode Maverick is Magna Centipede. Now this level is definitely a little bit difficult to get some of the items if you don't know how to get them. If you're seen by one of these spotlights that's moving back and forth in the background, it'll cause these blocks to fall down, and they end up turning into little turrets that keep firing projectiles at you. You can destroy them, or you can just keep barreling your way through them in order to avoid them. Over here though, do not go in the save point. Walk to the very edge of the save point, then back, and it should respawn it. If it doesn't, go back again and then back to the left, and hopefully it finally respawns it back to its safe position. Then you're going to jump up from the ground level and bounce on it in order to get up. This is a very specific jump and takes a bunch of practice, but you keep doing it enough, you should be able to get up there and get another health upgrade. The next segment has a lot of falling blocks. The pink ones can be destroyed, but the gray ones can't. And if you get crushed at any point, it's instant death, of course. Over here, you have to do another one of those jumps like we just did in order to get the health upgrade, in order to get the energy container for this level. Jump straight up in the air, and at the very height of your jump, you're going to want to just hit right slightly, so you cling onto that wall just barely enough in order to bounce your way up. Just like the previous level, there are two mini-bosses, both the same in this level, and it's these giant robots. I like to use Wheel Gator's move. You can also just fire out X-Buster shots. If you use Wheel Gator, you're able to deliver a hit to him. It'll keep spinning and hit him multiple times, and you can just hang out on the wall on the left or right side and watch his health slowly drain down as you keep seeing him get damage done to him. It's a pretty annoying fight overall, but I find Wheel Gator's move the best and easiest in order to get through. In the next area, drop down, there's going to be more spotlights. I just find myself jumping down there, and in this segment, it's very annoying. Avoid this targeting system at all costs, because if it hits you, it ends up freezing you in place for a bit, and you'll have to wait for it to dissipate. Trying to avoid it and climb on top of this platform, bust through the rocks above you using your helmet, and you'll be able to find the next and final Zero Chamber. After obtaining the last of the Zero moves, we're going to head back down. Watch out once again for that target. It's probably chased you up here by now. And continue on the level, watching out also for the ice blocks falling down. Right after that area, there was a save point and the second of the two mini-boss battles. And this boss fight's going to go exactly the same as the last one. He's going to spawn. I'm going to use Wheel Gator's move to help me out, hit him multiple times, and then cling onto the wall for most of the fight, watching out for his projectiles while still delivering damage to him. It's a pretty lengthy fight overall, but in the next area, watch out for the pits, as well as the giant silver blocks that are going to fall down from the ceiling and push you. Some are going to try to push you into the holes, some are just going to try to crush you, but either way, avoid them and get to the boss chamber on the far right for our battle with Magna Centipede. Here, we're going to get out the move we got from Morph Moth in order to help us out. As soon as the fight begins, hit him with a piece of trash and you'll actually knock off a big part of him, stopping him from doing a lot of his more powerful moves. He'll now teleport around, trying to fire projectiles out at you. He does a 3-shot spread shot while also jumping around the room. Just keep hitting him with the trash over and over again, and you'll see you'll do a ton of damage and he'll be dead in a matter of seconds. After completing the Maverick levels, we'll then be jumping back into the Sigma levels. Like I said before, the Sigma levels are the exact same as they were last time. The only difference here is going to be that we're going to be fighting that mini-boss instead of Zane. Work your way up the moving back and forth platforms, hitting the save spot before entering the boss chambers after a series of giant robots. In the second room, the one that after we have fought Zane, he will end up spawning in, and just like before, we're going to use Flame Stag's ability to really drain his health. Jamel or Gmol is really a simple and more easy boss even than Zane, I think. Jump over the shurikens that he throws out, timing your jumps correctly to get over them, and keep delivering those flame shots. You'll notice every time you're able to hit him, his health drains down drastically. The thing that changes up this time though is he'll use a magic carpet type thing to help him out. Just hit him with fire in order to knock him right out of this over and over again, and he'll just keep trying, but you'll keep knocking him right out, making this fight actually easier than the last fight. Of course, if you just use the X-Buster and don't have Flame Stag's ability, if you just play the hard mode by itself, it does get a little bit more difficult as he's flying back and forth trying to throw things at you. Once he's done though, move through the next room, watching out for the giant mace ball enemies, and then the long series hallway where you'll have to bounce off the left and right walls to the small platforms, avoiding as many of the enemies as you can. After the last save point and a series of the Matools hanging around, you'll enter the boss room for the rematch against the Spider Boss. This fight is the exact same. When he comes on down, you'll hopefully be a lot more practiced this time around after dealing with him the last time, and you'll be able to time your ice shots in order to hit him. Just like last time, it can be a pretty lengthy fight. Nothing else has changed in the fight though, he doesn't have any extra moves. I like to sometimes test myself and use Chill Penguin's move to try to hit him a couple of times by dropping it out the right moment. This can also be used to help you take out the little spider guys as well if you really want to use it that way. Just like last time, it will take a while in order to finally get rid of all the health of the giant spider, but once it's done, we'll be moving on to Sigma Level 2. Sigma level 2, while the same, we don't actually have to go get the Hadoken or the Shoryuken this time. I can show the other part of the level that we didn't explore last time around. That also means, thankfully, we don't have to do the manipulating of the movable platforms. In fact, as long as we get past this first one, which we can use to help us out, and we really don't even need to use this technically, we can then go ahead and just kind of bounce off the walls on our way upwards for that second set. Thankfully, the walls give us enough space that we can bounce up and hit off the walls, as long as we can avoid this enemy at the very top and get to the save point after going down the ladder. There are a few spikes as well as a giant mech trying to block our way, so be of course careful of those spikes as they're going to be instant death. And when we reach the bottom, move across here, as you can just actually dash across. You don't have to jump or anything, just dash across. I think you can also just walk across them as well. And you'll eventually pass underneath the area that we would have come down from where the Hadoken was, and continue on the level. Now, I'm not going to show them all. Unfortunately, I don't have enough ability, but I will show the first one and the last one. The last one is the most devastating, the final one, and it will pretty much destroy any normal enemy on screen. The only thing about it is, though, it takes up most of the energy of it, so you won't really be able to do that more than one time in a level. Now, once we make it to the boss chamber, though, it's time for the rematch against the giant cannon-like boss, and like last time, we're going to use the Hadokens in order to hit the 4 cannons on him, watching out as he moves closer with each of the cannons destroyed, and then be able to actually take him on as well. Of course, every time you destroy a cannon, he does inch a little closer, making it easier for him to fire out his projectiles at you. The fight, though, is the exact same. We'll be able to launch in their full charged up shots, doing our best to avoid the projectiles, and as long as we don't hit the spikes down below, this fight should be pretty easy, especially if you didn't have trouble the last time. With him destroyed, we're moving on to Sigma 3 and our rematch against the Mavericks. Just like last time at the beginning of Sigma 3, we're going to have to jump on top of the moving up and down platforms, watching out for the turrets that are going to fire the fire at us straight up, which usually ends up hitting me at least once as I'm trying to jump up and make contact with it. And then, of course, though, when we reach the top and make it through these boss chambers, we can grab extra health if we really wanted to before we even have to do battle with the first of the bosses. Jumping inside the lower right one is our rematch against Morph Moth, and we're going to be using the Flame Stag ability just like we did last time in order to hit him. In his normal form, he'll cause the trash to start circling around him and start rolling around the floor as well. Once he's a little over half health, he'll morph into his moth form, bouncing off the walls and firing not only projectiles at us, but also the pollen as he does so. At the end of each one, the health in the center of the room respawns, just like it did in normal difficulty, so you can grab that if you need it at any point. The upper right corner that we're going to travel to now has Magna Centipede. Just like before, though, we're going to use the Morph Moth ability to fire that trash at him immediately, knocking off the extra appendage, stopping, well, pretty much the majority of his able to do moves, and keep hitting him with the trash every time he teleports and bounces around the room trying to fire out those projectiles. On the far left side, on the top portion, is the rematch against Gator. Now, something that we didn't have last time was the mine from Magna Centipede, and you can use this to do a ton of damage to Wheel Gator, really speeding along this fight. Of course, he'll still block some shots when he's flashing, so you won't be able to hit him, and of course the best opportunities are going to be when he tries to go underneath the sludge and then pop out at you to grab you, so dodge out for those, and then turn around quickly and launch in a shot with one of those mines. You can hit him once again when he's in that spinning tornado-like move, which is annoying, but with ample opportunities for him popping out, it won't take nearly as long. If he ends up grabbing you though, quickly mash the buttons in order to get out of his grasp, and then continue moving around and dodging. In the lower left side of the screen, it's our rematch against Armored Armadillo. Like last time, we're going to use the Spark Mandrill ability in order to hit him. Keep firing at the very beginning, hopefully you'll be able to hit him and knock the armor off. Sometimes it's weird and you'll hit him without actually knocking the armor off. Either way, keep firing until the armor is gone, and then you'll have no problem being able to hit him when he's bouncing around the room, and when he stops, even to fire a few projectiles, you'll be able to hit him and stop him from doing so. Just like last time, in the center of the north part of the room, a new chamber will appear when you've defeated the other 4 Mavericks here. Run on through, watching out for the enemies if you want to, or just barrel through in order to enter the battle with Sigma. Just like last time, immediately start firing your projectile out at him. He'll block it and then charge forward usually. Once he does so, if he swipes at you and hits you, just start climbing the wall and then do what we did last time. He'll bounce back and forth, left and right, and when he gets to the top area of the screen, you'll want to drop down, fire at him, be on the ground, and fire at him again while he's moving down in order to hit him twice per cycle and then climb up the wall. Of course, you can play it safe and only deliver 1 shot per drop down, but if you want to speed things along and you have enough practice, and you should by now, you'll be able to hit him, drop, wait, and then hit him again before climbing back. As we move on to the final level of the hard mode, here you won't have any cutscenes, and you'll just move right into the battle, as of course the MIDI and techno thing from the last run is no longer here. The fight against Sigma here is actually tougher than it was the first time around, as he does do a few new things, firing out a large stream of fire immediately, which can do a large chunk of damage. You'll want to climb up the wall, just like last time though, and use Armored Armadillo's move. Sigma also fires straight fire at you, burning the ground below, but if you're on the little moving hand platforms or the wall, you'll be able to dodge this. Now, the hand platforms themselves do move around trying to hit you, and once in a while will use an electric shock charge in order to stop you from being on the platform, which you can easily dodge by being on the edge. Last but not least, he'll also fire lightning at the ground that'll then go up the left or right wall, stopping you from just hugging the wall. When he does this, of course, jump to the hand if you're not already on it, and continue to deliver the armored armadillo rolling shots right to him in order to defeat him and sit back and enjoy the ending. So there you have Mega Man Xtreme, both the normal and the hard difficulty runs of the game. I think it's really cool that they do include 8 Mavericks for you to fight, just like a typical Mega Man X or Mega Man game in general. However, the way they do it is just so weird of having 2 different difficulties separating the 4 sets of Mavericks. Of course, the overall best way to play, I guess, would be doing the extreme mode, which we unlock for completing hard mode, but the fact that it doesn't have the story elements overall just makes it end up feel like they really dragged out the game. Now, of course, that can be a good thing, giving the game plenty of replayability, wanting you to play normal, the hard, and then finally the extreme difficulty to get the complete experience. They should have just also given an option to include those story elements from the normal and hard difficulties also in the extreme mode. In my opinion, nowhere near as stellar as the Mega Man Gameboy games were, or, of course, the X series that a lot of the levels and everything based on. Mega Man Xtreme did a good job with what it was able to do and what it was trying to do. Take elements of the X games and put them on a portable system. After the credits roll, you will see Techno one more time, who will inform you about unlocking Extreme Mode and the fact that it has none of the cutscenes and is all about action. You will then have the opportunity to save once again, and you'll be back at the title screen, and you can start the game all over or take on the challenge of the extreme difficulty. Either way, that's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.